A few days ago, Ferrari revealed its first fully electric car. It's called the Lucia, and just so you understand how serious this car is on paper, here are some numbers. It has 4 electric motors, more than 1000 horsepower, and it can go from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in just 2.5 seconds. But here is the funny thing, the reaction from car enthusiasts across the world was almost entirely negative.
Disaster struck!
Actual disaster.
This is Ferrari's first ever electric car, but it doesn't even look like a real Ferrari. What have they done?
This will be a controversial car.
Car forums, social media, and everywhere else that you looked, everyone was saying the same thing, that something important was missing and the car does not feel like a Ferrari. Now here is where things get interesting. See, the way an electric car produces speed is very different from a petrol car. In a petrol car, the engine has to rev up, build power gradually, push it through a gearbox, and then the car accelerates in stages. You can hear it, you can feel it, and there is a very real sense that the machine is working very hard to go fast. But in an electric car, none of that happens. There is no revving up, there is no gearbox, there is no gradual build, so you basically just press the pedal and the car launches straight up. And that is exactly why even a regular family electric car, which is something that costs a small fraction of what a Ferrari does, can accelerate fast enough to push you sort of back into your seat. So basically the point is that the speed which used to be once reserved for $1 million supercars is now available in some shape or form in the car that maybe your neighborhood uncle is driving to office in. And that, if you think about it, changes pretty much everything for a brand like Ferrari, because a Ferrari's engine did not just make the car fast, it made the speed feel dramatic and feel earned. But if you compare it to an electric motor, no matter how powerful it is, it does not struggle in the same way. It does not strain, it does not build up, etc. A computer just sends energy to the wheels and the car just moves effortlessly and quietly. And here's the thing, when the effort disappears, the drama also disappears. And this is important because when the drama disappears, the thing that makes people put Ferrari posters on their wall as kids, that thing disappears as well. So then the real question is, what makes a Ferrari if speed itself is no longer rare and when the machine no longer has to fight very hard to produce it? And this is, by the way, not just a Ferrari problem. I'm sure you remember that about a year and a half ago, another legendary car brand, Jaguar, faced the exact same crisis. But the point is, there is a very important pattern here that we need to recognize. See, some of the most legendary engine-first petrol brands in the world are transforming themselves for an EV-first world. And in that process, they are also changing their brands in ways that are not even recognizable anymore. So then the big question is, are these companies just being stupid, or is there something deeper happening here that is actually worth understanding? That is what I want to talk about in today's video. I want to understand 3 very specific things. One, what was it about the petrol engine that actually made brands like these feel so special beyond just the speed? Second, why is it so hard to carry that entire feeling into electric cars, even though electric cars are technically more powerful? And third, what do the strategies of companies like Ferrari and Jaguar tell us about the difference between a brand that people admire and a brand that people eventually buy? My name is Anurag Bansal, and let's decode. Now, before we begin, I want to quickly tell you about Vint Wealth. See, when most of us think about investing, one number usually catches all our attention first, and that is the return. But here is the thing, before getting impressed by it, it is usually always a good idea to ask and understand how the product that you're investing in actually works. The return only makes sense when you actually understand the structure behind it. Stuff like who is raising the money, how is the repayment planned, what documents explain the terms, what risks are involved, and all of that stuff. And this is where corporate bonds become really interesting. See, in very simple words, a corporate bond is when a company borrows money from investors. The bond defines the interest rate, the repayment schedule, maturity date, and all other important details upfront. And that is where Vint Wealth is very useful. Vint Wealth basically helps retail investors access listed corporate bonds, usually rated between BBB and A, with returns of around 9 to 12% per annum depending on the bond. In simple terms, ratings help you understand the credit quality of the company issuing the bond. They don't really remove the risk, but they give you one more way to understand it a little better. And what I find very useful is that Vint Wealth keeps all the important details in one place. Stuff like bond details, ratings, repayment schedule, and offer documents. What is also very nice is that the process is extremely simple. You can invest using UPI or net banking, and you can track everything through a very easy dashboard. So if you want to understand listed corporate bonds and you want to see how Vint Wealth works, the link is in the description. Do check it out.
Fixed returns do not constitute guaranteed or assured returns. Investments in corporate debt securities, municipal debt securities, and securitized debt instruments
performance are subject to credit risks, market risks, and default risks, including delay and/or default in payment.
Now, before we understand why all of this is such a deep problem, let's first very quickly understand something important about what the petrol engine was actually doing for all of these brands for so many years. And to explain this, I want to start with something that has absolutely nothing to do with cars. Think about mechanical watches for a second. Now, a mechanical watch in today's day and age does not really survive because it tells you better time than your phone. Your phone is obviously more accurate, more convenient probably, and it's already in your pocket. But a lot of people still spend a lot of money on mechanical watches. Why? Because those tiny gears and springs moving inside the watch prove something beyond just basic timekeeping. They prove craft, precision, patience, and heritage. They're buying it because the way it keeps time through hundreds of tiny mechanical parts working together, that proves something about the object and therefore the person wearing it itself. Now here's why I'm telling you this. See, every premium product has something that I would call a proof system. Now a proof system is the thing that makes people believe a brand's claim. It is not a product's function, it is basically the thing that makes people trust and respect the product beyond its basic function. Now for a mechanical watch as an example, the proof system is the tiny moving parts. For a professional DSLR camera, the proof system is the size of the lens and the intent that it signals to the rest of the people about the person who's using the camera. And for performance cars, for the longest time, the proof system was the engine. And here is where it gets interesting. See, the engine in a car like a Ferrari or a Jaguar was not just making a car go fast. It was doing 4 things at the same time, and understanding these 4 things is very, very important. The first thing the engine did was to give the car its function. Now this is the most obvious one. It basically makes the car move from point A to point B. The second thing that the engine did was that it gave the car its form. And I think this is interesting. See, the shape of a performance car, the very long bonnet, the air vents on the side and all of that stuff, all of it is actually shaped by the engine itself. So if you think about it, the engine is not just sitting inside the car, it is also very heavily defining how the outside of the car should look. The third thing that an engine does is that it gives the car its feeling. Stuff like the sound, the vibration, the gear shifts and all that drama that we spoke about earlier. And the fourth thing, which I think is the most important thing here, is that the engine gives the brand its legitimacy. Now see, building a V12 engine that produces 1,000 horsepower is incredibly difficult. It takes decades of racing knowledge, precision manufacturing, and also engineering talent that a very few companies have and can afford. So the engine became the proof that the brand can do something that most companies on the planet just cannot do. And that is what makes the shift to electric so dangerous for them. Because think about it, when you replace an engine with an electric motor and a battery, you do not just lose one out of those 4 things. You actually end up losing 3 of them almost overnight. The car of course still moves from point A to point B, so the first function stays. But the form changes because batteries sit differently in a car. The feeling changes because there is no sound, there is no gear shift and all that drama. And the third thing, which is the legitimacy, also becomes very tricky as a result of all of that. Now here is why the third legitimacy part is especially very interesting. See, electric cars are not simple machines to build, but all the hard engineering in an electric car is the battery chemistry, the software, the thermal management and all of that. And the thing about this is that it is completely invisible to the person driving the car. Nobody feels the battery chemistry. Nobody can feel the software running. All they can feel is the pickup. And as we discussed earlier, when many different electric cars can give you that same instant pickup feeling, then the pickup alone is no longer a proof of anything. Now, before we look at how Ferrari and Jaguar are dealing with this problem, I want to quickly tell you about something that is very interesting. See, this exact same crisis where a brand's proof system suddenly stops working because of a new technology has actually happened in a different industry before. See, in the 1970s, a technology called quartz arrived in the watch industry. Now, quartz watches could keep time far more accurately than any mechanical watch, and they also cost almost nothing to make. So technically speaking, overnight, the thing that mechanical watches were selling, which was precise timekeeping, stopped being special. A cheap quartz watch was basically better at it than a Rolex. And because of that, at one point, the entire mechanical watch industry almost died. But there were still a few brands that actually survived, and all of them did one thing that was very smart. They stopped competing on timekeeping altogether. They stopped saying, we tell better time, and instead they started saying, we represent craft, heritage, and the beauty of human precision. Basically, they moved the conversation away from the function that had been commoditized towards a deeper meaning that quartz could never ever replicate. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this is because performance car brands are now facing their own quartz movement. Speed has become commoditized by electric motors, just like timekeeping had gotten commoditized by quartz. And the brands that survive will probably have to do what the watchmakers at that time also did. They need to stop defending the old function and they need to start building their identity around something that is much deeper. And also, Ferrari has one big advantage that a very few brands in the entire world have. I would call this a dream audience. I'll explain this. See, most brands in the world have one audience, which is the people who actually buy the product, right? But Ferrari actually has two kinds of audiences. The first is the actual buyer who spends a lot of money on buying the car in reality. But the second audience is basically everyone else. It includes a teenager who has a Ferrari poster on their bedroom wall. It is the person watching the car reveal on YouTube. It is the person debating whether a V12 engine is good or bad, and all of that stuff. Now, these people may never ever buy a Ferrari in their entire life. These are the people who actually keep the brand's myth alive. And this matters a lot because Ferrari's pricing power does not just come from performance, it comes from a lot of desire. Ferrari is worth what it is partly because even people who will never own one still care so much about it. But here's the thing, the moment that dream audience stops caring about you, the brand loses something that no amount of engineering can replace. Think about it. So when a Ferrari builds an electric car, it cannot just ask, will our existing customers buy it? It also and very importantly needs to ask, will people who cannot afford a Ferrari still continue to dream about this? And that is the problem with their new car, the Lucia. It is a seriously impressive car on paper, but it also has 4 doors, 5 seats, and a shape that is very different from what people like you and I associate with a Ferrari. On a technical level, yes, it makes a lot of sense because an electric car does not have a big engine sitting behind the driver, so you can make the car bigger and a lot more practical. But here's the thing, a brand's meaning is not always what makes technical and logical sense, right? And that's the point here. Now, with all of this context, if you think about it, Ferrari is stuck in a very delicate position. If they try too hard to artificially recreate the drama of a petrol engine, it'll feel very forced and almost desperate. But on the other hand, if they just make a smooth, quiet, luxurious EV that could have been built by anyone else as well, they risk becoming a very generic brand. So Ferrari now has to find a third kind of path. Of course, Ferrari does not and cannot keep the V12 engine alive forever, but it does need to keep alive whatever the V12 was proving to the audience. The theater, the irrationality, and that entire feeling that this is not a sensible purchase, and that is exactly why it matters. That, I think, is the challenge. Now, do you remember the watch industry we spoke about earlier? See, when quartz had commoditized timekeeping, the mechanical watch brands that survived did one thing very smartly. They changed the story that they told, but they did not change the basic product. The watch was still mechanical, it was still powered by tiny gears and springs. They just stopped selling it as a timekeeping device and they started selling it as a piece of craft. But the problem with Ferrari and Jaguar is that they no longer have that option. They cannot keep the old product because they have already changed to an electric motor and they've already adapted to change. So now they are being forced to change the story and the product both at the same time. And I think that is a much harder thing to pull off. So now these brands really have just two options. One, make the electric vehicle itself genuinely feel different and worth the price, or second, die a slow death. That's it from my side in today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe learned something new from it. I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to my channel because it does keep me motivated to make more such videos for you. It would also be of great help if you could like this video so it gets recommended to more people like you. That's all from my side. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.